To break the first lance, here is my why. I want to be a pillar, not a burden. Even if I'm struggling inside, I don't want to be a burden to others. Even knowing that I wouldn't be, I would feel like a burden and I just don't want to. Sorry, I forgot about a part in the title and I couldn't edit it, so I reposted it. My apologies. Well, this gained a bit of attention. For the record, I'm referring to someone genuinely asking how someone is, not as part of a standard greeting. Story 1. There's a great episode of BoJack Horseman that has a great quote about this exact topic. I'll paste it here. So I stopped at a Jack in the Box on the way here, and the girl behind the counter said, "Hiya, are you having an awesome day?" Not, "How are you doing today?" So, "Are you having an awesome day?" Which is pretty frustrating because it puts the responsibility on me to disagree with her. Like if I'm not having an awesome day, suddenly I'm the negative one. Usually, when people ask how I'm doing, the real answer is I'm doing poorly, but I can't say I'm doing poorly because I don't even have a good reason to feel that way. So if I say, "I'm doing poorly," then they say, "Why? What's wrong?" And I have to be like, "I don't know, all of it?" So instead, when people ask me how I'm doing, I usually say, "I am doing so great." But when this girl at the Jack in the Box asked me if I was having an awesome day, I thought, well, today I'm actually allowed to feel poorly. Today I have a good reason, so I said to her, "Well, my mom died." And she immediately burst into tears. So now I have to comfort her, which is annoying, and meanwhile, there's a line of people forming behind me who are all giving me these really judgmental looks because I made the Jack in the Box girl cry. And she's bawling and she's saying, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, it's fine, it's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but, it's fine. And I would like to order a double Jack meal, and I've kind of got somewhere to be, so maybe less with the crying and more with the frying, huh? And the girl apologizes again, and she offers me a free churro with my meal. And as I'm leaving, I think, I just got a free churro because my mom died. No one ever tells you when your mom dies, you get a free churro. Story 2. It kind of depends, because if you mean the generic, "Hey, how is it going? Good, you?" Good. Greeting that everyone does, then no one answers truthfully because the point is not to answer truthfully. It is just a thing we say as a greeting that confirms we are all on the same team because we know the same script. If you mean a friend, say, pulling you aside and saying, "Hey man, you seem kind of out of it, are you okay?" Then they are actually asking, and you should answer honestly. Story 3. Because we know they ask that question as a courtesy. They expect you to say good. And if you say otherwise, they'll get uncomfortable because they didn't ask the question to actually know how you are. Story 4. How are you? What's up? Or other versions of a hello are seen mostly as small talk, and thus the actual question is glossed over and seen mostly as a hi. Also, many people don't want to delve into their feelings and talk about all the things that are really wrong. Whether that's a fear of looking a certain way or just not wanting to go down that path. And certainly, there are just people who are good most of the time, like me. Even if I'm upset or angry, I know I'll eventually get over it and can hold multiple emotions simultaneously. So I just say, "I'm good." Story 5. I don't feel like it's a good thing to start unpacking my problems onto others unless they specifically state that they want me to emotionally open up, or if it's an appropriate time and place to do so. Story 6. I don't reply with "I'm good." I usually respond with something along the lines of, "Oh, the reason I don't go into it is quite simply because I know people don't want to hear about it. I've never been close with my siblings, and for some reason that's unknown to me, my parents have continuously distanced themselves from me over the past 10 to 12 years. We're still nice and friendly towards each other, but it has turned into a coworker-like relationship. I can feel they don't actually want to know about my problems in depth. Also, I've never had many friends, and the ones I have, I feel like they don't care that much either. The only person who genuinely and deeply cares about me is my wife, so I do share my problems with her. It's not that I don't want to be a burden, more like I don't want to feel like an idiot. For example, I've had situations where my mom asked me, "How are you?" And I went into my life situation, but after a few moments she started saying things like, "I'm sorry, I hope it gets better," or "Oh well," and other stuff that people say when they want to cut off the conversation. When I continued talking anyway, she basically just changed the topic to something cheerful and completely unrelated. This happened several times, and every single time I felt like a complete idiot afterwards. Story 7. Also, us men don't really like to talk about our problems unless we feel that talking about them will lead to a solution. That, if you need to talk, I'm here doesn't work for most men. Story 8. It's easier to keep it inside than to pander to others and pretend they have good advice on my problems. I don't care about using other people for help. I just don't think most have the help I need. Story 9. My go-to answer is reviews are mixed or a solid meh. How about you? Sometimes, today sucks. How about you? All said in a polite and inquiring tone. It breaks up the monotony of fine you, while giving the person something to laugh at or agree with. If they want to know more, they will ask. If they don't, they won't. Story 10. Because the said person could not help me even if I told them, and it is nothing that gets better by ranting about it, so sharing does nothing for me and my problem. It only changes the way they see me. Story 11. Every time I talk about it, it's always but everyone has problems. Everyone deals with shit. Thanks, I didn't know that before, and that's the answer I wanted. Story 12. Because most people are just asking to be civil, and I don't want to drag them down into my problems. If someone is asking because they genuinely care, I'll give them a more genuine answer like, good days and bad, or hanging in there. Story 13. Most people do not actually care how you are doing. It is just a way to please the social contract to start a conversation like that, since socially, it is rude to just start talking about the thing you want to discuss. I would prefer they do not ask if they do not actually care or want to know. At least then they are being authentic, and I can respect that. In fact, you can have some fun with this if you start talking about all the problems in your life to a random stranger bagging your groceries. Watch their face as it turns from general disinterest to regret that they asked. I would not suggest it, though, if you are a regular customer. Story 14. If you are looking for sympathy, you can find it between ship and syphilis in the dictionary. At least, that is how it was explained to me when I was a young man. Story 15. That's a real United Kingdom / United States / English culture reaction. In a lot of other cultures, you do more than say, fine. So if someone asks you how you are doing, and your dog died, you respond that you are sad because your dog got run over by a transport truck. What's strange about it is that it's said rather casually in many cultures. It acknowledges you are going through something, but not to make a big deal about it. When the English hear it and aren't used to such a candid remark, they can have exaggerated emotional reactions or cringe and avoid it altogether. It really makes me sad that Western English culture either expresses emotions like an overgrown toddler or acts as if all is fine. There are bumps in life, and saying it out loud won't curse you for the rest of it. Story 16. Because if I tell you how I'm really feeling, either no one will care or they will get very uncomfortable and leave. It is better to just not saddle everyone else with my problems and just deal with them on my own. Story 17. I'm sort of the same as you. Unless I'm dealing with something physically, my problems are mine to deal with, and I don't usually discuss them. However, to jump off your point about being a pillar, I prefer to be an island with desirable exports. I can run support, but I do not generally seek support myself. I send you pineapples and you send me money. They show up reliably, and if issues arise, contacting me about it is easy, and I offer no issues in reply. But also, how are you is a canned salutation. So, I offer my own cans in response. Story 18. My go-to answer is, I can't complain enough. It's great because I neither have to lie if I actually feel bad, nor explain myself because people mostly just chuckle and don't ask further questions. As to the why, there are multiple angles to this. Other commenters have already said this. The question is more akin to a greeting than an actual question. So it's actually not socially acceptable to say anything other than, I'm good. Personally, I also hate having to explain my problems to people and then receiving well-meaning but useless advice that is often the same and also condescending because the other person is acting like I wouldn't have thought of the basic approach they are suggesting. I dwell on my troubles enough as it is, no need for someone else to remind me of them. Lastly, I feel like there is a big societal pressure on men to be strong and confident. If you admit your troubles, Many people take it as, oh, this guy's weak. I'm not going to take him seriously anymore. Funnily enough, contrary to the stereotypes, I've personally experienced this primarily with women. They don't say it out loud, of course, but you can feel a certain kind of condescension in how they treat you after you've shown what might be interpreted as weakness. It's like you're no longer a man in their book. Might just be my personal bias that's making me feel this way, though who knows? Story 19. I want to be a pillar, not a load is good advice for strangers, but you should be able to talk to your friends and family, I hope. Friends aren't a burden. Story 20. This will be buried, but here's my 2 cents. Responding honestly and being manly in a traditional sense aren't mutually exclusive. Maintaining an air of stoicism, being taciturn, speaking softly, and carrying your big stick, being unaffected by the world crumbling around you, has nothing to do with being happy, jolly, or good all the time. Think Clint Eastwood isn't a rainbow of a man. You can tell people you're having an awful day and always turn down help. Turn around and do something to make their day better, even. You can say you've been affected by a problem and proceed to never show it. Having no complexity to your character is boring and makes it seem like you don't have any insight or haven't taken any modern problems seriously. Being a person of action has always been manly. Who thinks Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, or Gandhi was a coward? They talked openly about the pain and sadness they felt from personal and world experience. The other issue with hiding your own trials and how they damage you is you're distancing yourself as a sympathetic ear. You're undercutting your ability to help people. Be a superhero and a shoulder to cry on, not a stone. I'm not really a man's man, nor do I glorify the old days of manliness. But isn't running away from your problems being something of a coward? Just own up to your damage and take care of people anyway. Story 21. The phrase, "How are you?" in many cases is a colloquial greeting. I keep it light with my responses unless it's a situation where I'm actually having a deep discussion with a friend. Story 22. Because most people consider men's issues irrelevant or of minor concern, why would we say what's bothering us when it will be demeaned, ignored, or thrown back in our faces? Story 23. Because after pouring out your heart and soul problems only to be met with a "that sucks," doesn't feel like it accomplished anything. It is easier for the short term to hold it inside. Story 24. Why have someone who cannot help pity me? I'm not saying I have it worse than anyone, but we all have our battles. I have my issues. No one can help. I have to keep myself together. End of story. Story 25. I think a couple of reasons. Men are still shamed in society and taught that having emotions is not manly or tough. We are conditioned not to open up because society says we are weak for doing so. The truth is, the strongest thing anybody can do is show their true emotions and honor them. B. That question is typically rhetorical. Sometimes I do not need to open up to somebody who asks that. They are not looking for a deep and honest conversation. They are being polite. Story 26. I do not find many positives in sharing my problems with others, even close friends. Most issues I experience and the feelings that come with them are temporary, so it is easy not to bring it up. Story 27. The meaning of "how are you" has evolved from being genuinely interested in how you are doing to a simple greeting. Just like, "What's up?" It is not a genuine interest in your plans for the rest of the day, and "how's it going?" is not a genuine interest in a status update on what you are working on at the moment. So you do your social duty of responding in the expected way. Good, great, can't complain, and so on. If you actually want to know how someone is doing or share what is going on with you, you need to get past the initial greeting. Story 28. Because the person asking doesn't actually care. They're just trying to be nice. There's nothing worse than when you ask someone how they are doing and they actually tell you. Story 29. Because since I turned 8, no one has given a shit. The very few times I try to unload what's going on to anyone, even therapists, there is no discussion of it. Just, "oh, okay." Or they just walk away. Or life isn't that bad. Story 30. Like people have said previously, it's just a generic greeting dialogue. It's when you don't give the typical response that things get weird, and people judge you by the character of your response. This doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. but it mostly happens when people have a lot of negativity on their mind and it comes out in a bad way. Personally, I enjoy making quirky comments about my day when somebody asks me how I'm doing, and it usually makes them laugh. Now to answer your question. In modern society, men are basically only valued by how useful they are to others. It's a sociocultural stigma for men to show weakness. You are expected to be the pillar, and any display of negativity in response to the question is a sign that something is wrong with you. Keep the answer generic because when people actually want to know how you're doing, they won't ask you in a generic way. Story 31. For me, it's just assuring that I'm doing well. I feel I don't want to be a burden for anyone, so I just go with I'm good. Trust me, it's a win-win. People think you're fine and won't be concerned, and you'll feel you won't be a burden, as in when you share your problems. Story 32. Usually for me it's because I know that they have their own problems to deal with and don't need my issues dumped on them as well. It's better for me to just keep my mouth shut. Story 33. If I'm doing poorly and someone asks, I always say, just rolling with the punches. It's my way of letting people know things are happening, but I don't feel like I'm being a burden to anyone.